The trio of Tibs, Boulder, and Gordon were previously unsung heroes who had once defeated the powerful demon. At that time, there was what the world called the Lakeshore Dyed in Scarlet incident. The White Primordial is the demon that dominated the East and is feared, and the other party came into the world just short of acquiring flesh. Plus the opponent is still primordial. Among the high-ranking demon generals, the power is not calculated by the amount of mana alone, it is the feared demon. They were lucky to have beaten the White Primordial when that happened, or so Tibs thought. But at the same time, he was confident that no matter how many times he fought the opponent, it was impossible to lose. After all, Tibs is ranked 11th. And in the strongest group of such, single digit symbolizes special meaning. And in charge of aiding them was the 11th ranked Tibs. His Majesty has granted me the strongest equipment. Coupled with this power, how could I possibly lose to a demon? So much so that Tibs is confident. After urging Geist to retreat, Tibs shouted at his companions. You guys hurry up and open the door. The White Primordial seems to have gotten flesh, but it shouldn't have accumulated too much mana yet. We're going to do everything in our power to beat her here. Got it? Yes. Only to see Gordon nod and Boulder flash a wild smile. As soon as the answer was given, the alchemical pendant that the three hung around their necks began to glow. This ray of light turned into a rushing current that enveloped the three of them. Then the warriors, fully clothed in gold armor, appeared. These are legendary equipment, given only to the chosen ones. Although there are individual differences between the weapons, the armor is all the same shape. This is the highest grade equipment that has been handed down from ancient times. Nowadays, wearing this armor, Tibs and the others would be able to fight with all their might. You're out of luck, White Primordial. It seems you've had a hard time gaining flesh, but it's naive. Running into a seer means your luck has come to an end too. The hand that Tibs had been holding on to the chains, intending to send Testarossa to the west, was about to exert itself, but at that moment the force of the chains fell on it. He didn't expect her to get away with it as if it was nothing. I said, you think I'll forgive you for doing this? Hearing the sound that made even one's body freeze, Tibs turned his head. And in front of his line of sight, Testarossa reached out and grabbed Geist by the neck. A muffled gack sounded, and the next thing you know, Geist goes limp. There was nothing he could do about it, and he was killed like that by Testarossa. How is this possible? And so it was, Tibs muttered, disoriented. Tibs looked at his hands, trembling. The weave of hairs and chains forged with holy silver, a rare weapon of the legendary level, were added to the magical creature, and now it seems as if everything is in vain. After that there was greater suffering to find them. Did I keep you waiting? I'm sorry if that's the case. Because this man was trying to escape, I lectured a little. After all, not to do so would be to disobey Lord Remure's orders. It can't be helped. Testarossa stared at Tibs as they spoke, a voluptuous smile on her face. And then, as if suddenly thinking of something, at the following. That's right. That's right. It's been a concern since then. Can you please stop calling me White Primordial? What? Because, yes, I already have the name Testarossa. I would be unhappy if you didn't call me that. She made a proclamation that only 2 words could describe despair to the Tibs. Wait, you just said your name. Not only did she gain flesh, but she even had a name. This has never been done before. Now they must admit that the battle is against them. We must retreat. We must report to His Majesty that there is a crisis. Okay. Then let me trip her up. Then I'll use elemental magic to move the stronghold. The reason the Trinity was taken was to respond to such moments. They quickly decided who should do what, and next Gordon began chanting teleportation magic. Immediately after, Testarossa flashed an evil smile. She smiled miserably and beautifully, looking ominous. What's so funny? After shouting this, Boulder picked up his lance and launched a surprise attack on Testarossa. However, the figure of Testarossa had long since disappeared. Boulder simply couldn't keep up with the speed of her actions. Where'd she go? Here I am. Someone exhaled into Boulder's ear, the sweet aroma taking over the nasal cavity. It took no looking back to know that the other person was Testarossa. Boulder felt it, the slender female hand that was cold enough to freeze his soul, was touching his neck. Ah. The image of Geist being killed just now came to his mind. I hate people who don't think for themselves. It is also not known if Boulder heard this last remark from Testarossa. Gack. A magnificent look of fear came over his face, and Boulder fell. Boulder, who was ranked 38th, was thus killed by Testarossa. Tibs watched in a state of thoughtful confusion, not having been so restless in centuries. Hurry up, Gordon. Boulder was killed. That one is too dangerous. The cry was no longer controlled by Tibs' will, and was tinged with fear. Seemingly in tune with him, Gordon nodded silently as well. After that, the teleportation magic was complete, and the magic array that floated on the ground glowed. Good, let's retreat. Tibs also rushed into the magic formation and gave this order. But the teleportation magic didn't kick in. Why? As if mocking a panicked Gordon, Testarossa gently answered for him. What's so strange? After all, there's nothing wrong with the use of magical vein to disrupt radiation. Even if the others said so, Tibs and Gordon couldn't hear it for a moment. What did you say? Mana disrupts radiation. Is it possible that you use magic to recreate? Looking at the two of them like this, Testarossa sighed with a headache. Who are you? Even if it is the primordial, a high-ranking demon general wouldn't have such a powerful power. Like trying to manage to cover his fears, Tibs let out a loud scream. No, that's right. You weren't this good in the war before. What did you do to evolve like this evolve? At this point, Tibs and Gordon looked at each other face to face. Hearing himself shout, Gordon was able to correctly ascertain the current state of Testarossa. Testarossa looked at the two men's faces pleasantly. To answer their questions, she opened her mouth leisurely. Gee, that's clever. Correct answer. I became a more powerful being than a high-ranking demon general after gaining a name. Do you know about the demon archdukes? It's very different from the rank of a high-ranking demon general. It's sad that you can't understand without saying it through your own mouth. This answer deepened the despair of the two men. Evil archduke. The second geek crimson. Tibs and Gordon had by this time finally discovered that things were serious. As a matter of fact, you shouldn't be interested in this world again after you lost that princess's flesh. Not so. By the time you came over, my deed with the girl was done. So that's where I went from there, although I'm a little sorry. There was such a thing as this in the sky, and Tibs felt his self-confidence completely shattered. How dare you disturb my dinner at that time? Hey Tibs. Ever since being stared at by the bright red eyes of Testarossa, Tibs and Gordon had been unable to move. It was as if a frog was being watched by a snake. You said dinner. All Tibs can do is bide time through dialogue. That's right, I was eating. Even after being bathed in so much blood, so much that the beautiful lake water was dyed bright red, I still didn't get enough to eat. Thousands of innocent people died. This is what the Covenant is about. And to eat the most important main course before you run to mess with it. That is a rare opportunity, and I want you to atone for that time. You bastard. Testarossa was responsible for the tragic Lakeshore died in Scarlet incident. Yet this demon says that the tragedy was just a meal. Not only that, but also saying there wasn't enough to eat. The strong anger made Tibs' heart burn. Evil things like you. With the glowing sword raised high in his hand, Tibs struggled to escape the spell of Testarossa. The struggle paid off, the physical strength came back, but this was only the beginning of Tibs' desperation. Testarossa, you haven't killed them yet. Seeing that you're busy, you didn't bother, but it's almost time to finish. Cute voices that didn't match the battlefield came through the air. She was the maiden who had tied her long dark purple hair into a single ponytail. Ultima. Even the 11th ranked Tibs could detect a strange scent on her when she looked over. Oops, isn't this Ultima? I made you wait so long. Well, I was muddling along with Mr. Gabil and the others, so I'm not in a position to say anything about anyone else, but Lord Remura wants us to do our best, and we'll be scolded if we don't finish this soon. That's bad. Right. It's rare to meet old acquaintances, so I couldn't stop talking. Still, so to speak. Let's get this over with before Lord Remura gets angry. The conversation that unfolded before his eyes was incomprehensible to Tibs. No, it's not that he can't understand, it's that he doesn't want to understand. No way. Testarossa and Ultima. There is no doubt that they must be of the same rank. There are two primordial demons. It's all out of fear. The glory of being ranked 11th became meaningless in front of the two demons. That's when Tibs suddenly began to envy Boulder, who had died first just now. That's right. Then I'll say goodbye to you, even if I'm a little bit wary. By the way, if you've met someone you've never met before, let's show you the magic that suits your heart's desire. Faced with a bewildered Tibs, Testarossa happily recounted. In a dazed state, Tibs knew his death was not far away. Black flames were summoned from the deep darkness. The black flame condensed to the size of a fist and glowed in the palm of Testarossa's hand. The black flame poured this uncontrollable hellish karmic fire that Testarossa could crush with ease. She flashed a dismissive smile and whispered as if in song. Death streak. Tibs' eyes whitened at once. He didn't know what kind of magic it was. That little brother over there knows geek crimson too, right? In that case, you would know what this magic is, right? This magic was released when Geek became a demon lord. Sadly, Tibs' awareness is interrupted here. He was consumed with deeper despair and thought to himself within he never knew. In this way, Tibs, who was 11th in the Empire, and Gordon, who was 64th, became the first casualties of the blessing of death launched by Testarossa. Immediately after, within a limited radius of 500 meters, a ferocious death storm was raging. This kind of magic didn't distinguish between enemies and allies, and would wipe out all the creatures within that range. So Testarossa first confirmed through magical sense that there was no one from Tempest's side of the range before making that move. Testarossa and Ultima breezed over to confirm the results. Looks like there are no survivors around here. That being said, Testarossa did a beautiful job. Gee, what are you talking about? I'm talking about this toy called a magic tank. Because you beautifully retained its original form, we were able to bring back unharmed ready-made goods to investigate the intelligence. That's for sure. That's why only humans were eliminated. Perhaps I should also use the blessing of death without mercy. That way, the toys floating in the sky won't break. Yeah, your magic is too flashy. However, it would be sufficient to recover the first sample that was knocked out, and use it as information. And right. Seriously, that toy was so fragile that it did more damage than imagined. I was only going to break one, but I ended up breaking a bunch. No way. Because Lord Remure named us, we are stronger than ever. It's going to take a lot of attention, Ultima. I have also been reflecting. But perhaps Carrera was worrying more than I was. I don't know if she knows how to hold the force, but she likes the gorgeous magic. That's why you're here. Lord Remure saw through even that, and I'm impressed. Ah, so it is. Then I'm relieved. And so it was that the two continued to talk. Although the content of some of the words seemed to misunderstand Remure, no one anywhere near the scene could be found who could correct them. Then again, Benimaru-san is also overly worried. The people who are worried about hurting Lord Remure are on the Empire's side, and they want us to be merciful in order to force out such talents. That's a bit of a problem. If it's simply a matter of getting a victory, just send us over from the beginning. That way, the things that bothered Lord Remure are gone. These are the policies of Lord Remure, right? He wants us to stay out of the fight. I guess Lord Remure is trying to make Gobta Jr. and Mr. Gabil grow. In the case of Lord Remure, it was easy to make them evolve, but combat experience had to be honed and accumulated on its own. A brat like that, who thinks he's good for nothing, is just a piece of us. It's nice to think that way, and I understand, but it's a shame. At least there was still a chance to make an appearance, so that's good. Testarossa and Ultima chatted like this, but even when they were having fun, they didn't forget to carefully collect the spirits of the dead. And just like that, the battle of Testarossa and others was over. Of the Imperial Mecha Legion currently in combat, the Magic Tank Division and the Air Combat Flying Corps have been completely defeated. The death of Lieutenant General Geist disables the headquarters. The soldiers at the end of the general can grasp the situation and begin to flee in defeat. The situation on the battlefield changes and becomes a battle of annihilation. There were 200,000 men in the Magic-Guided Tank Division, led by Lieutenant General Geist. The Air Combat Air Corps, led by Major General Faraga, had a total of 40,000 troops. The army had fewer commanders and fewer means to apply for an armistice. And most of the Imperial General's soldiers were on the battlefield. Just at this moment, the Jura Tempest Federation was certain that it had won the battle. But that doesn't mean the war is over. That was because of the fact that these Imperial forces had been defeated, and the head of the Imperial Mecha Legion Army, Grand Admiral Calgurio, was still unaware of it at this time. Now the main force of the Imperial Mecha Legion, the Mecha Modification Corps, is advancing towards Remure, the capital of the Jura Tempest Federation.